You're watching the only wrestling podcast that matters. I'm your host, Jean-Paul Leek. And you know what time it is, folks. Tuesday morning, Monday Night Raw. The build towards Elimination Chamber WrestleMania, it's in full swing. I mean, they're more focusing on Super Showdown, but this is the time that of the year that usually the wrestling picks up. And like I've been saying the past couple weeks, Monday Night Raw has been on the up and up. This week, it's still going up, but it wasn't at the pace it was going before. It was just kind of like they were really going up, and now this kind of like flatlined a little bit. It wasn't a bad show. It's definitely better than anything we've seen on Smackdown for the past, how many months. But for Monday Night Raw, we have been seeing a little bit better in the past. But this show wasn't, bad in my opinion at all. It was definitely watchable. Again, I wish it was only 2 hours, but it was definitely a watchable show. But before I actually get into the review, I just want to plug some of the videos. We had a special one on the channel. If you haven't checked it out, please. We had our first interview. I told you on the channel here, we're going to be doing interviews on Rope Break. With the first one with ChaCha Charlie. He's one of the hottest baby faces in the independent scene. If you haven't, heard of him, check out our interview with him. I believe it was like almost 50 minutes we had with ChaCha. He was such a nice person. We talked a little bit before the interview and a little bit afterwards. Just a great guy. Check out his YouTube page, all his social media. We have it in the video description, and, share the video, get it out there. We have a bunch more wrestlers who he wrestles with. They're down to do interviews. They, they like the channel. So, everybody, even the wrestlers, know that Rope Break's the most legit YouTube wrestling podcast out there. So, like I said, please check that out. And, of course, we have all the other content. If you haven't already, Smackdown, the awful show that was from last week. Of course, we reviewed that. NXT, AEW, and, you know how it goes here on Rope Break. We don't miss a thing. So, like I said, with all that plugs out of the way, let's get right into the review. So Raw opens up, Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, AOP, all them in the ring. And actually, it's just Murphy now. I'm still going to call him Buddy Murphy. I still call Andrade Cien Almas from time to time. I refuse to call Chad Gable Shorty G. I think I might slip up every now and again, but I'm calling them what they've been known as and what they deserve to be called, not their WWE produced bullshit names. So, like I said, they're all in the ring, and Rollins says that he's proud to stand here as the Monday Night Raw Messiah, and he said that he's grown to like the name that the fans gave him. And he said he understands how hard it is for them to speak truly, but that's why he's here, to speak for them, and to lead them into the future. But he said before he can lead them into the future, he needs to talk about the past. And last week, when the AOP and Murphy took on Kevin Owens and the Viking Raiders, and then it shows highlights from that match last week, and he said that Kevin Owens and the Raiders were clearly upset about the loss, and that they cost him his chance to face Brock Lesnar in the triple threat main event. And then he said that his patience is growing very thin with Owens and the Viking Raiders and Joe, and he said that he preaches a message of oneness and unity, and he won't leave until that message is heard. So then out comes Owens, and then Rollins, he warns him not to get in over his head like Joe and the Viking Raiders. And he said that he won't die a martyr since Seth already did that, because Rollins is the Monday Night Messiah, and that if KO does want to stand alone, he will die alone. So then Owens says that every week Rollins runs his mouth and sounds dumb, and he looks like a dumbass, or he looks dumb as hell. And then he said all KO does is just keep fighting, and Rollins is wrong because he is not alone. And then out come the Viking Raiders. So then Seth said his problem isn't finding partners, it's keeping them upright. So then Kevin Owens, the Raiders are next to him. He shoves Eric, he shoves Ivar, and then, so he's trying to like shove him down. And then he's like, I don't know, they seem pretty solid to me. So then they rush the ring, and it turns into a 3-on-4 with the heels had the advantage. And then Rollins is in the ring as Murphy and the AOP are fighting. And then that's when Samoa Joe, he comes in the ring, and he gets the coquina clutch on Rollins. And then the AOP, they break that up. But then then the other three go in the ring to save Rollins. Kevin Owens is in the ring. He hits a stunner on Buddy Murphy. And then the heels retreat. Huge Samoa Joe chant. So good to see Joe back. I'm glad there wasn't a suspension. And if he was concussed, hopefully it was just a minor concussion. Something like, hey, we're just going to take you out of the match. 2 weeks have passed. Now you're good to go. So I'm hoping that's all it was. I can't see Joe being the kind of guy who's going to use, growth hormones or any kind of bullshit like that. So then we get Becky Lynch's music. She hits while all the faces are still in the ring, standing tall, which I didn't like. You don't need to rush this show. It's 3 freaking hours. Like, let these guys have their moment. Because Becky Lynch's music hits and they're all like looking around like, what the hell's going on? So that to me was a little annoying. And Becky Lynch's new character ever since, I don't even know since when. Ever since that, I guess she beat Asuka, which maybe it's because I'm an Asuka mark, but ever since she beat Asuka, her new, like, oh, I have superpowers and I'm the best thing since sliced bread, like, she, like, took the man even more in your face. And it's like, the man was already an in your face gimmick, but it was good. Now it's like, it took a step further, and now it's too much for me. I just, I want to see her lose. She doesn't need to change her gimmick, but just change her attitude a little bit. So then Asuka and Kairi, they come down, and of course Asuka's mocking Becky, the whole, speaking in Japanese, easy peasy, all that stuff. So then we get, but I guess before we get into the match, my opinion really hasn't changed on this Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, all that stuff. It was good, but like, I don't know, like, I need to see more of it, because now, like I said, are the Viking Raiders, are they going to challenge challenge Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy at the Elimination Chamber? Is it going to be Joe and KO challenging them at Elimination Chamber? Because like I said, you cannot drag the feud on these 8 men until WrestleMania, because I will be bored of it. I will be, like, dead bored. I'd rather watch... Okay, I was going to say I'd rather watch Smackdown, but that's a lie, because I don't know how you can draw this feud out until April and make it interesting. I'm not saying it's boring or it's bad or it's, unwatchable, but you need to do something. Like, Rollins needs to lose. There needs to be some internal conflict. You need to have maybe somebody join his faction and then destroy it from the inside. You need to do something to really spice it up. But like I said, it's not bad. It is what it is. It's good. It's definitely better than what we've been seeing on Raw, all of last year for the most part. So, like I said, this 2020... moving forward, Raw has been getting better, so I definitely can't complain about that. But like I said, I'd like to see something to spice this up. At least Rollins is a good heel. Buddy Murphy's getting TV time, but, the same complaints I made before. The Viking Raider, or not the Viking Raiders, AOP should be the ones with the tag team belts. I mean, the Raiders should still have the belts. They should be feuding with AOP, and then AOP should beat them at the Elimination Chamber for it. And then, maybe have Buddy Murphy... He could challenge Andrade, but I know they have, Andrade suspended, and, now that title's kind of in limbo, but, it is what it is. So, like I said, so then we get that whole Becky Lynch thing. So now let's get into this match. So Becky versus Asuka. Both women tie up, headlocks, shoulder tackle takes down Becky, some strikes by Asuka, a side headlock by Becky, then after a dragon screw leg whip by Becky, Kairi Sane distracts her, and then Asuka knocks down Becky off the apron with a hip attack as we go to commercial. Then back from commercial, Asuka's in control, and then another hip attack, but Becky hits her comeback moves, strikes to Asuka. Asuka gets a roll up for a 2, and then Asuka hits a knee strike between the eyes, and then slams Becky down for 2. Looked almost like a feast your eyes kind of. And then Becky, she dives, but Kairi pushes Asuka out of the way and takes the hit. And then a big boot to Asuka, but Asuka hits a code breaker on Becky. Asuka tries to hip attack, but she doesn't, and then gets an arm bar on the ropes. Like when she's kind of like hanging there on the ropes, Becky climbs up, straddles the rope, and gets her in the arm bar. So that was a pretty cool counter. And then Becky hits a reverse DDT on the apron, like how Christian used to do with that inverted DDT. And then Asuka hits a superplex for a 2, drop kick into an arm bar by Asuka, and then Asuka goes for a triangle choke. Becky picks her up and then drops her hard for a 2 count. Asuka misses a leg drop, Becky misses a leg drop and then gets caught in the Asuka lock. She breaks out and roll-up attempts by both women. Becky hits a rock bottom or uranagi for the win. So, just judging off the match, it wasn't a bad match, but again, like, why did Asuka have to lose? Just, like, why do you have to book this match? But it was all for what happened afterwards. Which Shayna Baszler, she attacks Becky after the match, beating her down. She chokes Becky and slams her to the mat. She then bites the back of Becky's neck, and Shayna has a little blood packet, I'm sure, in her mouth beforehand. And then when she pulls her head up, she has blood all over her mouth. And then Becky's freaking out as we go to commercial. And then she's being shown backstage refusing to go to the hospital. So if you were going to have Shayna Baszler attack Becky Lynch, why not have her attack Becky Lynch during the match? Then you protect Asuka, and Asuka doesn't lose, because now it's like she lost twice. So what was the point? Like she said, Asuka was the only woman who Becky hasn't beaten. Then she beat her at the Royal Rumble. Okay, cool. Becky, she checked that name off the list. Then you book a rematch, 2-3 weeks later? Just have her lose again. And Kairi Sane is pretty much like the lowest woman on this roster besides Sarah Logan in the eyes of Monday Night Raw Creative. So like now Asuka, she's just falling further and further down that depth chart. So like, what are you trying to do with these women? Are you trying to like just eliminate all these Japanese women, from your roster? Io Shirai's probably out the door. Kairi Sane's out the door. You trying to get rid of Asuka too? It's like, come on, you're gonna have no talent left. Like, again, I don't get, why they have to bury these women when you could protect them in certain ways. Now, Asuka did look strong, but, like, really, Becky hit, like I said, a rock bottom. Is that her new finisher? Like, I don't even know what this was. Was this just something where it's like, hey, time constraint, boom, let's go here, this and that? I don't know. Let's see if she keeps using that move going forward. If not, I'm going to call it a fluke bullshit finish. Like I said, Shayna should have just jumped in and, caused a DQ. Asuka would have won on a DQ. Becky would still be champion. You'd still get the point across. Everybody would look, better for it. So then we get the Street Profits versus Mojo and Riddick Moss. And the Profits, they mock Mojo for riding Gronkowski's coattails. And, so then Gronkowski, thank God we don't see him. Mojo's all pissed. And then this match was, as short as it could be. I thought this was going to go a little longer, but then I guess, Riddick Moss, Mojo Rawley, does anybody really want to see it go long? So a drop kick by Dawkins on Mojo for a 1. He tags in Riddick Moss and then a spine buster on Moss, followed by the splash for the win. I forget what they said they call that when Dawkins hits the spine buster and then Ford hits the splash, but they get the win off that. And then afterwards, you have the two heels, I guess you call them, Mojo and Riddick Moss. They're standing in the ring. Riddick Moss rolls up Mojo Rawley and becomes a new 24/7 champion. Yeah, that's pretty much what I think about that. Like, I mean, hey, I was talking to some friend, Juan and Onion Strings Jeter. I was talking to them over the weekend, and I said, I want to see the Street Profits wrestle, like the SNL type, funny news anchor skits they do. It's funny, but these guys need to be on TV more. They need to actually be wrestling. And then WWE's, they're like, oh, you want them to wrestle? Here you go. And they like throw me a scrap of meat instead of giving me a steak. You know what I mean? So it's like, I want to see these guys really wrestle. But the only thing is, your only other 2 legit tag teams on this whole show are, in a feud with each other. Which it's not even for the belts, because you have 2 single stars holding the tag team belts. So the whole division is just screwed. I mean, you have Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, but when they're the main event champions, and I say main event as in the show main event, they're they're champions of that. They're locked into that for the next 10 years. You're never going to get them out of there, which, both guys are talented enough. You could have them be on TV and you could build a decent division. But, what do I know? So then we go back to Becky Lynch. She was pretty much the story of the whole night. Becky, she's being just really like angry, and in my notes she's being really cringy because she's just refusing help. Anytime a doctor's like, let me check it out, she's like, no, I got it, don't look at my neck. And she's like throwing them around, and not actually like throwing them, but she's like waving her arms. She's like, don't touch me, like, it's fine, I don't want to go to the hospital. And it's just like, I don't know why you wouldn't just let them look at you. Like I said, she's trying to be like Stone Cold. Whenever he was hurt, he would just like, shove a doctor off and this and that. But with Becky, I don't know, it just comes off different. It comes off forced. I'm not saying she needs to be like a crybaby, timid little woman. I don't want to see that. But, just let them look. Let her be like, where's Shayna? As they're like looking at her neck. Her focus shouldn't be being angry at the doctors. It should be being angry at Shayna Baszler. So then we get MVP's Lounge. And MVP, he welcomes Drew McIntyre to the show. And MVP says that he likes Drew for always being Drew. And he said that they go way back. And he said, how Drew eliminated Brock Lesnar and how he's going to WrestleMania. And then Drew mocks how they always have to point at the sign. He's like, hold on. He points at the sign. He's like, there we go. So then MVP says that he shouldn't listen to what people are saying behind his back. And then Drew asks him, what's he saying, because he knows it's MVP. He's like, what do you mean, what are people saying? He's like, what are you saying? And then MVP says that they're going to change all that. And Drew says, we. And he said he doesn't remember both of them winning the Rumble. Then MVP says that Drew needs him to handle the interviews, the headaches, distractions, stuff like that. And then Drew's like, oh, so you want him to be like my advocate, my manager? And he's like, yeah. Kind of like a Brock Lesnar. He wants to be the Paul Heyman to Drew McIntyre. So then Drew asks the crowd what they think. They boo, of course. And then Drew says that maybe he can be his manager and his advocate. And then Drew said that the difference between him and Brock is that he doesn't need another brain, someone to talk for him, and someone to kiss his ass. And MVP says that he isn't an ass kisser, but an ass kicker. And then Drew, he turns, and then MVP grabs him, and he's like, you don't walk away when I'm talking to you. So, of course, boom, Glasgow kiss, headbutt, 3, 2, 1, boom, Claymore kick on MVP, and then Drew balling. You got to love Drew McIntyre as a face, and then he walks off. So, great segment. I mean, it's great just because it's Drew McIntyre. Everything that he's been doing is fantastic. And, I just love this new Drew McIntyre where he's face and he panders, and pander's not the right word, but he plays with the crowd, plays up to the crowd. But he's still a badass Drew McIntyre. He's not like a limp-wristed baby face. He's not like someone like Ricochet that's like, oh, my dream for 17 years has been to be WWE champion. Drew McIntyre is still Drew McIntyre. He's just presented as a baby face. So I really enjoy that. But like I said, MVP, it was cool to see him against Rey Mysterio, cool to see him in the Royal Rumble, even though he was only in there for 3-4 seconds. But it's like, why do you have this segment to just have him get his ass kicked? It should have actually been a cool, maybe sit down, but maybe, that's MVP was clearly fine with it, or he was at least fine with the money they were giving him. So it wasn't bad for what it was. So then we get highlights of Randy Orton and Edge from 2 weeks ago, and they said that Randy Orton will be here tonight to be talking about, maybe we'll actually get an answer from him this time instead of him just coming out and then walking back without saying anything. So then we get Angel Garza versus Cedric Alexander, and Zelina says how Garza's a man's man, and we get highlights from last week with Mysterio and Humberto and Garza and everything that happened with them. And then he said that he's a man's man and he's also a ladies' man because no woman can resist him. Then Humberto charges the ring. He hits Garza with a spine buster. Security pulls Humberto away, and the crowd chants, "Let them fight." And then the match actually begins. And then both men, they kind of get they cross the arms and they're choking each other. They both do that to each other. Strike combination by Cedric, a drop kick on Garza. Garza catches him and then slams him face first on the outside. Cedric then slams him into the steps and the barricade. Garza drop kicks Cedric in midair and then hits the wing clipper for the win. So Cedric got a little bit of offense in the beginning and a little bit on the outside, but obviously all it took was Garza. Boom, hits a drop kick. Cedric stunned, picks him up, wing clipper. Cedric Alexander's not kicking out of that. So, this guy, unfortunately, he's one of them who's extremely talented. And, just like so many people on this roster, they get jobbed out and they look like losers. But the one thing I did like, Humberto, there was intensity there in the crowd. Every time we see him, especially since this Angel Garza thing, the crowds, I'm not going to say they're hot, but they're getting more behind Humberto, which, like I said, this is what you needed. Vince wanted this guy to be over week 1. He had that match with Seth Rollins, and Vince wanted him to be over. And no, that's not how it works. You got to get these guys on TV. Now, I'm going to go back before Drew won the Royal Rumble. He was way more over as a babyface, let's say the Monday Night Raw before the Royal Rumble, than he was when you first presented him as a babyface. Because it takes time. These guys need to not even get comfortable with the role, but the crowd needs to get comfortable with their new role and their new position on the show. Once the crowd gets comfortable with it, if it's presented in a manner they like, it'll get over. Otherwise, you need to go back to the drawing board and change it. But I think with Humberto, they have the right thing going on here. And especially, if he beats Garza, which, I'm not going to say I hope he does because I like Angel Garza more. We'll see where this goes. But I think his end goal is Humberto's end goal is Andrade in the United States Championship. So then we get highlights of Charlotte last week, everything going on with her, with Rhea Ripley. And then Charlie, she's backstage, and she asks Rhea if she's waiting for Charlotte. And Rhea says that she doesn't wait for anyone. And then Charlie asks her about Bianca in Portland. And then Sarah Logan shows up, and she calls out Rhea. She's like, who do you think you are? You know, you can't just show up on this show, Monday Night Raw, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, what, you want to just get riptide in 6 seconds? And, you know, I'm not saying I'm a great booker and this show's predictable, but, you know, it's pretty predictable. So then we get Lana and Lashley. They're backstage. And Sarah Schreiber, she asks Lashley about losing his chance to face Brock Lesnar at Super Showdown. And then Lana asks, why would you interrupt him during his workout? She's insulting Ricochet, being annoying and cringy like always. Didn't even take notes to what she said because I don't care. And then Lashley says that he's not a scrawny kid like Ricochet and that he's going to end his dream and reintroduce him to reality. And Ricochet won't make it to Super Showdown, and Brock can thank him for that. And then we get Sarah Logan. She comes out, and she's walking to the ring, and she calls out Rhea Ripley. And then Rhea comes out, and then she makes her way to the ring to fight Sarah Logan. But as soon as she gets in the ring, Charlotte comes out, and then Rhea beats down Logan, all while staring at Charlotte, hits the Riptide for the win. So, you know, I don't know. Like I said about Sarah Logan, she's the lowest woman on the depth chart. You know, I don't know what the purpose of this is. Why you couldn't just have them. I mean, I guess it makes it a little more interesting than having them both stare down. But maybe you could have had Rhea slap the shit out of Charlotte. You know, do something like that. Put her hands, try to piss Charlotte off so much. Like, you know, she has to put her hands on her. She has to hit her. She has to, like, aggravate Charlotte to agree to this match. Instead, you have to make Sarah Logan look even more like a loser than she already is. So then Rhea asks her for her answer, and she says how she invited her to face her at WrestleMania. She came to Raw. She said no. And then Charlotte came to NXT and still said no, or still no answer. And then she says that she doesn't give an answer, and Charlotte says that maybe that's how the queen is. And Charlotte says, how do we even know that Rhea will still be the champion after Sunday? So Rhea just stares her down. Charlotte woos and then points to the WrestleMania sign. So like I said, you know, Charlotte, they're still teasing it because I feel like this is the plan, but they don't know if this is the actual plan. Like, this is what they have just penciled in. They're like, maybe we're going to go with this, maybe we won't. You know, like Juan and I were saying in NXT, I could see them doing the swerve here. Maybe Bianca's champion. And then it's like, hey, you know, we gave Rhea the belt NXT because she deserves it, but she's one of them who's main roster bound as well. So maybe they're going to have her, you know, lose the championship, and then she somehow finds her way to Charlotte at WrestleMania, and it wouldn't be a match for a title, so Flair would probably feel robbed, but, you know, it would still be a great match. And that would be the way to get her, you know, on the main roster. And then speaking of WrestleMania goes Hollywood next year, because, you know, that's the location, the new stadium that they built out there. So, you know, that should be pretty cool. It's not going to be on the East Coast, so Juan and I can't go, so I really don't care. I hope it's a decent show, but judging off these past WrestleManias, no. So then we get the match that we were all waiting for, which I joked, but it actually wasn't too bad. Ricochet versus Bobby Lashley. So Ricochet said being the WWE champ has been his dream for 17 years, and to Lashley, he's a scrawny kid, but nothing will stop him from getting to Super Showdown. And then, as we did in the Lashley-Lana promo, you can also hear it again here. The crowd is chanting for Rusev Day. So Rusev is still more over than both Ricochet and Bobby Lashley, and of course, more over than Lana. So Ricochet starts out fast, but Lashley catches him with a foot, and then with a big kick, and then catches his foot rather. I'm sorry, and then he beats down Ricochet. A springboard drop kick sends Lashley to the outside. Ricochet dives to the outside, and he hits Lashley. He sends him out to the outside on the other side of the ring, and then hits another dive as it goes to commercial. And then Ricochet moonsaults off the steps onto Lashley. Lashley sends Ricochet hard into the post. Lashley then beats him down on the outside of the ring. A suplex for 2 by Lashley. An enziguri by Ricochet. And then another head kick followed by a drop kick. Crossbody, standing shooting star press for a 2 count on Lashley. A huge one-handed spine buster. Like I said, Lashley does that spine buster that looks almost like a choke slam. For a 2 count, I'm sorry. And then Ricochet lands on his feet after a superplex. Ricochet fights back, goes up top, hits a 630 senton for the win. So like I said, it wasn't bad, Bobby Lashley, he didn't look bad in that triple threat match. Of course, he ate the pin, and he ate the pin here. I have a feeling later on, and I'm going to talk about there's a gauntlet match in Super Showdown. I wouldn't doubt if Bobby Lashley wins that thing because I feel like he's getting more over, which is, it's crazy because his storyline he was in was deemed the worst thing, and I hated it. In all my reviews, I said, I'm sick of this. Please end it. Please end it. But I like the internal conflict between him and Lana because every time there's a promo, Lana is the same cringy, annoying, loud, and screaming, and Lashley just interrupts her. Like he sometimes even tells her to shut up. So you can tell there's going to be a divorce angle between them two, and I hope Rusev doesn't take her back because then he looks even more like a cuck. But like I said, I think Lashley's going to leave her, and then I don't know if he'd be turning face, or I guess he would be turning face if he left her. But like he's getting a little bit better in the ring because they're not putting him against guys like Braun Strowman, Rick, and they put him against Finn Balor. But Finn Balor he was so dead on the main roster, he didn't even try. The last match he had that was good was against Brock Lesnar. But with Bobby Lashley and Ricochet last week with Seth Rollins and Ricochet, like those matches are getting better. And I think if Bobby Lashley, you actually let him go out there, I'm going to agree with the TNA Impact marks, whoever. Bobby Lashley can actually go. I'm not saying he can put on a 5-star classic, but the guy can work. So then we get highlights of Becky, Asuka, and Shayna, and then Becky stealing the ambulance because Becky stole the ambulance and went off. She was like, want to put me in the ambulance? I'm going to drive this thing myself. She took off. So, we see highlights of that. And then Orton, he finally comes out. And as he walks his way to the ring, he says that he still owes everyone an explanation of what he did 2 weeks ago. And he said what he did hurt Edge more, or what he did, it hurt him more than it hurt Edge. Boom, Matt Hardy's music hits. Big delete chance for Matt Hardy. And he comes down to the ring and he said, like everyone else, he wants to know why he did it. And he said he's probably asking why Matt of all people cares about Edge. He said they all know his history, huge lead chance. And then he says that how him and his brother, Edge and Christian, were all friends. They traveled together, stayed in the same hotel rooms, and how they revolutionized the ladder match. And he says how they all stole the show at WrestleMania. And he said that they did it not alone, but all together. And then he said that when he saw he was forced to retire because of injury, all the hate he had for Edge was gone. And he said that him and Edge, they're a lot, more similar than people think. And he said that they love performing, and he can't imagine if this was taken away from him the way it was taken away from Edge. And he said that they would talk, and then Edge always said, what if, what if? And then after 9 years of what if, he finally came back. And it was one of the greatest returns ever, and Randy took that all away. And he asked, what the hell is wrong with Randy? And then, he's real close to Randy Orton. He goes for an RKO, but Matt counters it. He starts to beat him down. Eventually, Orton hits the RKO, and then he grabs the 2 chairs, hits the concerto on Matt, and then Orton walks to the back. Amazing, amazing promo by Matt Hardy. I, just took some notes here on it. Watch the whole thing on YouTube. It was a really heartfelt, really good promo by Matt Hardy. I like how we're not seeing Edge back. I hope we don't see Edge for a while. If we don't see Edge until after Elimination Chamber, I would be completely fine. Really sell this injury angle. Make it seem like he's not even going to be at WrestleMania. Make it seem like he is literally done. He had the Royal Rumble return and done. Really sell this injury angle because then when he beats Orton, it'll be that much sweeter. But like I said, really good promo by Matt. I actually thought he was going to beat down Orton for a little bit, but of course you're not going to have Orton, look like a weakling, so he hits the RKO. And then, there's Matt Hardy. He's not re-signing. This could be his last appearance. His contract is up March 1st. And like I said, if this is his last appearance, he went off with a banger because, really great, really heartfelt promo. And, that's not something that's scripted. That was from the heart. And like I said, if Matt Hardy does leave, I hope we see him on a wrestling show, whether it's AEW, Impact, wherever, sooner rather than later. Because, and what he said in the promo, he can't imagine if this was taken away from him. And you got to think, ever since the Lake of Reincarnation and the Bray Wyatt thing, when they split up, it pretty much was. Yeah, he was getting a paycheck, but it was taken away from him. He wasn't on TV. And then they're like, oh, you want to be on TV? And then they made him a jobber. They made him a loser. So, now hopefully he can go out there and actually show everybody that he still got it. So then we get highlights of Liv Morgan and Lana from the previous weeks, and the return of Ruby Riott. And then Sarah Schreiber, she asked Ruby why she did, what she did. And she said that Liv was her best friend, and that best friends know everything about each other. And she says Liv is like a puppy. She can't act like she's a woman now, but Liv isn't a leader. She's a follower. And Ruby is back to put her in her place, and Liv will strike when Ruby says so. So it seems like maybe Ruby, she beat down, almost like an abusive parent. She beat down Liv and been like, you're not going to act on your own. You act when I tell you to act. So we could still see, I don't think they're going to reform the Riot Squad, but, maybe Liv will, like I said earlier with Seth Rollins, maybe someone will join and then turn. Maybe Liv will do the same. She'll agree to join Ruby, turn, and then that leads to a feud. I would rather just see it go to a feud, but we'll see what they do. I'm glad at least we saw Ruby Riott tonight and get a little more story progression with that. So then we get Aleister Black versus Akira Tozawa. My boy Akira Tozawa, he's doing the job again. So some back and forth. It wasn't as quick as I thought, but it was still pretty quick. So like I said, some back and forth. Tozawa hits a drop kick, but Black hits a huge knee strike. Black mass and done. I mean, at least Tozawa got a little bit of offense in, right? So then Black grabs the microphone and he says that he's enjoyed the past few weeks sharing these intimate moments with the fans, and he says that everyone tries to escape from the given idea of paradise, and he knows a thing or two about rebelling. But for him, he is starting to feel like an animal in a cage. So for those who come out to face him, they will be trapped in a metaphorical cage with him. Aleister Black, great on the mic, great in the ring. I believe we said on the channel, he was one of the guys who was supposed to win the Royal Rumble. It was Drew McIntyre and him, and of course Vince had to throw Roman Reigns in there because it's like the senile old man, just screaming for prune juice at the old folks home. You got to give it to him because otherwise you just want him to shut up. So it's like, yeah, we'll consider Roman, don't worry. But they felt Drew McIntyre was more over, and I believe he's the more, not saying I wouldn't believe Aleister Black to beat Brock Lesnar, but I think Drew McIntyre is a little bit more believable. And I think I agree he is a little bit more over, but Aleister Black is right there, especially, how he's cutting these promos. Anytime you involve the fans, Stone Cold was all about the fans. Give me a hell yeah, all that stuff. When you get the fans involved, they like you more. And that's what, Drew McIntyre is doing. That's what Aleister Black's doing. So like I said, really good promo. He's definitely getting over, and I'm really happy to see that. So then we get Becky Lynch again. She comes back now. She drove back from the hospital because, like I said, she stole the ambulance, came back. She has her neck all taped up. She comes out and she says that they numbed her all up and that she's ready to fight. She's ready for Shayna. And that she said that she wants to sink her little rat teeth into her neck to get her attention. Well, mission accomplished. And she said that she doesn't care who she is. And she said that she ran through everybody on the roster and that she doesn't give a damn about her because she will hunt her down week after week, and that she better find Becky before Becky finds her. So then we get to Kauai. I forget how they even said it. It's the city in Saudi Arabia where the trophy gauntlet match, there's going to be a trophy gauntlet match at Super Showdown. So it's AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley, Rusev, R-Truth, Andrade, Eric Rowan. I assume that's going to be it. There might be more, but like I said, I could see that coming down to Lashley and Rusev. I thought AJ Styles was supposed to be out till Mania, so I could see maybe him getting beat down quick, maybe by Andrade, a quick roll-up, and then, hey, Styles is there, but he's protected because if he is hurt, or just coming back from injury, I don't want to see him get hurt in this stupid gauntlet match for a trophy that literally means nothing. Whoever wins it is probably going to post it on their Instagram so WWE is happy, and then they're going to throw it in the trash or sell it. So then we get Seth Rollins, Murphy, and AOP, Buddy Murphy and AOP versus the Viking Raiders, Samoa Joe, and Kevin Owens. So Rollins says that before they get this started, he has one more thing he wants to say. Boom, the faces, they start beating everybody down, and then it goes to commercial break. When we return, the match is underway with Eric. He's pretty much manhandling Buddy Murphy. Samoa Joe tags in, and he goes off on a Murphy. He whips him into the ropes, delivering a running shoulder and a kick to the head. Owens tags in. He hits a splash on Murphy, followed by chops to Rollins on the apron. And then Eric and Ivar tag team body slam each other onto Murphy. Aka makes the tag and catches Eric with a spine buster, followed by some punches. Razor tags in. He teams with Akam and delivers a knee to the face, followed by a European uppercuts. Rollins tags in and applies a sleeper hold onto Eric. Murphy tags in again, and he beats down Eric until the big man knocks everyone down from the apron and makes the tag to Ivar, who knocks Murphy down with a shoulder. Sidewalk slam and a crossbody from Ivar, and then he turns him inside out with a lariat. And then Murphy tags in to stomp on Kevin Owens. Owens is thrown to the outside, and Murphy distracts the referee, allowing Rollins to get the cheap shot on Owens on the floor. AOP then work in tandem. They keep Owens isolated and beat down. Murphy is I can't even speak here. Murphy is the legal man, and he takes a rear chin lock on Owens, and then Owens fights back. He punches Seth on the apron and then drops Murphy before tagging in Joe. Then he tees off on Rollins, and he catches him with an atomic drop, a big boot, and a running senton. And then Seth rolls to the outside, and Joe looks for a suicide dive, but AOP get on the apron. So then Eric and Ivar come in, and then they knock them down. And then the Viking Raiders and Joe, all three big men, suicide dives to the outside. So then Joe gets Seth back in the ring, and they go back and forth. Joe hits an Uranagi, and then gets a near fall. All hell breaks loose. Everyone gets in the ring. Everybody's delivering their moves. Owens takes to the top rope, and he dives onto everyone at ringside with a senton. And then in the ring, Joe catches Seth in the coquina clutch, but Seth tagged in Murphy, who comes off the top with a springboard. Joe grabs Murphy with a coquina clutch. He taps out, but AOP has the ref distracted. Seth Rollins hits the stomp, and then Joe kind of flops over on his back. Murphy falls on top of him, and the ref counts for the 1, 2, 3. So it looks like Seth Rollins, his curb stomp has some power after the Fiend buried that move in Saudi Arabia, but maybe that's because the Saudi Arabia shows don't count. But anyway, the heels get the win. I feel like that was the right team to win. The heels have to keep winning because when the baby faces win, the feud's over. And like I said, when is that feud going to be over? I'm hoping Chamber, but I feel like since Chamber's so close to WrestleMania, they're just going to extend it. But like I said, great match. There's no way I can say that all 8 of these men can't put on a great match. But I want to maybe see some single matches. Let me see Samoa Joe versus Buddy Murphy next week. Let me see something to that, accord, because just these tag team matches, well, you can't do anything different than you haven't done before. They had that thing with the Big Show, and now you're including the Viking Raiders, you have Murphy, you have all these, like, new pieces, sort of, and you try to spice up, like, like I said, the street fight or this and that, maybe they make it no DQ, they had the elimination, all these stipulations, it doesn't change the fact that it's still the same thing pretty much. So you really need to do something to spice up the storyline. Otherwise, it's just going to get old real quick. But, that was Monday Night Raw. Like I said, it wasn't a bad show. Some of the stuff with Becky, you could have done differently. I liked her last promo that she cut when she came out at the end. But everything else backstage when she was like, no, get your hands off me. And she's like, you want to take me to the hospital? You're not driving me. And she got in the ambulance and drove it herself. Like I said, it was trying to be stone cold, but because it was clearly trying to emulate that, it wasn't over. I don't think anybody really enjoyed it. And, Asuka looks like a jobber. Sarah Logan looks even more like a jobber. The Matt Hardy thing was good. Drew McIntyre with MVP. Weiss kind of squashed MVP, but it was still good. Liv Morgan and Lana got a little more, and Ruby Riott, that storyline kind of continues a little bit. Hopefully not with Lana, but she was just in the highlights. But, that storyline continued. So like I said, there was some good stuff. There was some bad stuff. But overall, I thought this show was definitely more good than it was bad. But it wasn't, a perfect show. It wasn't anywhere near an AEW Dynamite or an NXT. But, it was definitely watchable and definitely a hell of a lot better than SmackDown Live. So that was the review, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. And like I said, please, if you haven't already, ChaCha Charlie interview on the channel. Of course, we have SmackDown, NXT, all that stuff. Royal Rumble, Juan, he posted a FIFA video. Please check that out. Some great gameplay. We want to do more stuff like that. Gameplay, Jean-Paul, right here, baby. We want to do maybe more action figure stuff on the channel. Definitely more video games, old school games, Super Nintendo, and new games, of course, like, Juan has his character against Roman Reigns because, who doesn't want to see Roman Reigns lose? So please watch that as well. So PS4 and, like I said, old school, Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation. We have all this stuff planned for the future because, like I told you guys, we're doing the interviews. We have our first one up, so we're not liars here. So on this channel, please stay tuned for a lot more interesting content, not just wrestling reviews, because Rope Break isn't just wrestling reviews, it's a whole brand. It's a whole, it's a worldwide thing, and we're coming for you. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and remember, click that bell, follow us on all social media, click subscribe, please comment, please like, do all that stuff we know you're so good at doing. So have a great day, guys.